Daniel Cormier is being humiliated, and I've had enough of it. It's really starting to get annoying, and I've thought this for a very long time, but of course, because Jon Jones is fighting Stipe Miocic at UFC 309 this weekend, Daniel Cormier is back in the spotlight, and he's talking about Jon Jones. Now, I've got a few things that I want to show you in today's video. One is Daniel Cormier breaking down his fight with Jon Jones and breaking down the rematch, and having to act like it's a legitimate win when it was overturned to a no contest because Jones tested positive for PEDs. It's insane that DC has to do this. And then you've got Daniel Cormier here having a phone call with Jon Jones where he has to act like everything's okay and smooth things over. And then you've got like UFC staff members, and they always do this on the weighing show, by the way, whenever Jon Jones can be like somewhat relevant to the time that the show happens. But we've got weigh-in show producers just taking shots at DC. It's weird how jokingly this is taken, okay? Daniel Cormier, and we'll get to the clips in a second. Daniel Cormier was knocked out by Jon Jones in front of his family. He had his legacy derailed by Jon Jones. If it wasn't for Jon Jones being on PEDs, and who knows if it wasn't for Jon Jones in general, because we'll never know how good he could have been natty. One would imagine that he wouldn't have been good enough, which is why he isn't natty. But DC got his legacy destroyed, tarnished forever, and knocked out in front of his family and friends by a man who took performance-enhancing drugs. Just setting the stage here. People say, it was only picograms. Jon Jones had the testosterone of a castrated male in that fight. Something has to have been replacing his testosterone. That is public information. And everyone acts like it's some okay thing, and they'll still use Jon Jones KO in DC in the UFC promos while knowing that it's a fight that was overturned to a no contest. While they won't show Ngannou KO in Stipe. I saw that in the countdown. Let's get straight into it. So DC, I feel so bad for him, man. Because he's the good guy, you know? Like, he didn't really put a foot... Yeah, he eye-poked Stipe, and he was annoying at times and corny early in his career before we all came to know and love him. But look at what he's got. It's like...
Foot placement. Southpaw conventional foot placement is very important. And why? It opens up the window.
And he's breaking down Jon Jones versus Daniel Cormier 1. Then he goes on to the second one. This is just a set to show you what he's doing. But this fight, Cormier Jones 2... was overturned to a no contest because Jones tested positive, you know? And a lot of people in the comments here are saying for Daniel to stand there and gas up his arch rival shows a whole new level of sportsmanship that many don't possess, I'm assuming he meant to say. Truly an amazing spokesman for UFC and MMA in general. I've grown to be a fan over the years. Fair play. For him to stand there and gas up his arch rival, bruv, for him to stand there and break down like how great Jones is in a clip of a fight where Jones used PEDs to beat him. Like, there's a guy here saying Jones Cormier is literally a no contest. I don't know why DC talks like he lost. Man was on heavy PEDs that night. True. Absolutely true. It's insane. And there's no mass thousands of likes comment here saying it's actually crazy that they let him break down a fight where a guy beat him by PEDs.
Twinkle John and Greg Jackson are as good as anyone at doing that. That's what they did with Jones in fight number 2. They knew that they found success with weapons to my body, but a lot of it in fight 1 was kicks and knees. This time, John started to use his hands to get to the same result. Me dropping my right elbow to try and set up a high kick. But it was body punches and it was knees to the body. He's really good at that switch knee.
And he breaks this down, and he's keeping positive and saying he's really good at this, and this was why he beat me, and DC is going to do that because he now works for the UFC. If DC didn't work for the UFC right now, and they were talking about Jones DC and just asking for his opinion as a guy off the couch who's retired and happy, I'm sure his opinion would be more like, well, let's not forget that fight was overturned because he tested positive for drugs. Let's not forget that. But now he's working for the UFC. They like string him up and run him through this gauntlet of humiliation. We're going to get to this phone call that he had with Jones as well. And people with thousands of likes here. DC is and will be and forever will be salty towards Jones. You know what I mean? But
in there. But ultimately, I'm trying to pressure because I'm the shorter guy having to get close. John knows that weapons to the right side will ultimately make me start to drop my elbow. And when I did, Jones was able to find that opening that landed the head kick. But when you look at this action, J.A., my hands are going down to...
And it's true. Technical reasons is why Jones beat DC that night. Like, he made him go low with the kicks and he brought up the head kick. But it's like, dude, how hard is he pushing him round 3 if he's not on roids? Is he withstanding DC's pressure that night if he's not on PEDs? Is he wilting a little easier to what DC was doing to him? Because people forget, man, DC was having a hell of a fight against Jon Jones in that second fight. Jones was targeting the body and the legs, but DC, I think, knocked out Jones's mouthpiece a couple of times, was landing some really solid shots on him, and Jones just wasn't wilting. He wasn't breaking down. He was still in there every second of the fight, ready to throw with as much effort as he possibly could, no matter what pressure DC put on him. And that was the case in the first fight as well.
Block at the body again.
Right.
Jon wraps that kick over the top, gets that beautiful head
And head kick KOs DC.
kickoff that ultimately failed me. But again, I'm going to the body.
It's crazy that they've got him up here doing this. First of all, DC, man, we got to talk about the way. I might make a video about, because I'm worried for DC in terms of how spherical he's been getting.
I've got to go down.
But it's sad to see, man. For a sport that is supposed to be respected, we've got a guy like being strung up here like this, you know, and this is the time he beat me here, and what a great performance from him. And meanwhile, the whole community knows, dude, Jones, that fight's overturned to a no contest because Jones tested positive for PEDs. We all know that. Yeah, they'll always show it in the promos, and they'll always be like, Jones this, and how great was that win over DC. And the top commentators in the sport will just say that without mentioning that it was overturned. We got guys like Joe Rogan who'll probably break it down on his podcast at some point, and probably already has, where he's like, wow, what an amazing win. And people forget, man, what a win Jones had over DC in that rematch. He's way better in rematches. 2 rematches Jon Jones has had in his career. DC, Gustafsson 2. Want to know a factor about both? For the DC fight, the fight was overturned to a no contest because Jones had a turinabol of something in his system that they couldn't prove pulsed in someone's system, and they used Clomid data to prove it, even though Jones has tested positive for Clomid before. That didn't pulse in his system. Turinabol did. To this day, Turinabol has never been proven to pulse in someone's system. They used data on a different drug that hides in people's fat cells to justify why Turinabol was in the system of Jon Jones. And he had the testosterone of a castrated male. Something must have been replacing his testosterone on fight night. Unless he's castrated. Oh, wait, he has 3 children, and he's not. So that's one thing. Then you want to talk about the Gustafsson rematch. What happened in that one? Pulses again for picograms. The commission that they were originally at for that Gustafsson rematch considered Jon Jones a roid cheat. Not the UFC, not USADA, the commission themselves considered Jon Jones a roid cheat and said, you know what? He's a roid cheat. He shouldn't be able to fight Gustafsson. This is unfair. The UFC moved the entire event to another location. This is real. If you've been an MMA fan long enough, and this ain't even MMA fan long enough, this is recent shit. I know we talk about Jones as being inactive, but this is like a year before he dipped for a few years. And then he had the run of Smith, Santos, Reyes. Legendary run of it against Smith and Santos. And then Reyes beat his ass and he retired for a few years. Either way, they moved the entire event to a different commission that was more lenient so Jones could fight against Gustafsson in a rematch. What do you know? He beats them both dominantly after having really competitive fights with them the first time. You know? Those are the 2 rematches he's had. And people will be like, oh, what amazing rematch ability he has. And it's just like, man, Jones, it's embarrassing, man. You know? That was the Gustafsson rematch, and he did the Smith decision, the Santos one-leg decision, split decision, lost to Reyes, and then took, 3 years off while Ngannou was heavyweight champ, so he could show up at heavyweight as Jon Jones with about 15 pounds of body fat on him, fight Gane, and then fight Stipe, I guess, who's an old man now, and then just dip right back down to light heavyweight. That was what those 3 years were for. 2 years maybe, whatever it was. Remember, USADA didn't have to tell anyone about their suspensions. But he just needed those 2 years, 3 years out of competition. Interesting stuff. But that's what I wanted to talk about here. DC's just being humiliated, man. They shouldn't be making him do this, especially with the Jones rematch. That shouldn't count. It doesn't count on his record for a reason. So why does it count? And then here we are, have DC talking to Jones behind the scenes. You know, I'm super proud of the way your life is turning out for you, man. And your development seems to be going great too. And it's just like this fake thing where DC has to pander to him to move on past it. And I'm like, he shouldn't have to. He shouldn't have to move past what Jones did to him. Ruined his career and legacy. When he was the older man, by the way, against Jones. He was the old man and Jones was the young guy in his prime. You know? And DC still was like, oh, I've got to try and compete with him. And Jones is the guy in his prime, fighting the older man in DC, who no doubt has way more injuries and way more miles on the clock when it comes to wrestling, and is way older, testosterone going to be lower. And Jones is the guy who shows up with 0 test. DC had high test for that fight, but there's reasons for that allegedly after a weight cut. When you pierce, all of a sudden there's like a spike in certain things that come back to your body. I've seen the whole Derek More Plates, More Dates video where he talks about this. I've watched a lot of him. I'm still reaching out, Derek. More Plates, More Dates. I'd love to do a Jon Jones Fight Week interview. I messaged you and thought we could do it, but you haven't replied, dude. But it's all good. But here we go. Here's the interview with DC and Jon Jones, where Jones is on the phone.
Your voice, man. How are you?
Great. I'm doing great. Is Daniel here too?
Daniel is alongside me, yes.
All right. What's up, DC?
What's up, John?
What's up, DC? I'm the guy that fucking ruined your whole career in front of your family and kids and KO'd you while I was on roids. What's up, dude? Crazy.
How you doing, man?
I'm good, man.
That's good. That's good.
All right, I just have one question for you.
Yeah.
So,
DC, I got a question for you. How are you doing, man? How's life fighting?
And DC's like, ugh. This fucking bitch out. Dude, that's what DC's thinking right here, dude. That's the, ugh. Oh, he's trying to be nice. I know who you are, you scum. You know what I mean? That's what DC's expression there was. Ugh. How are you doing, dude? Ugh. Who responds like that to how are you? DC knows who Jones is.
No, I mean, it's good. My life is going really well. Thank you.
What's going on?
It's good to hear your voice, man. How are you?
Great. Oh, I just wanted to say, Daniel, I'm super proud of the way life's turning out for you, man.
It's kind of funny, but it's so humiliating. Look at DC's face. I'm so happy with how life's turned out for you. Not the GOAT of light heavyweight. Not the potential GOAT of the sport. Because I beat you while on roids. Super happy with the way things have gone for you, man, after I beat your ass on roids. Super happy, dude. You never were the greatest like you wanted to be. Look at DC's face. He's like, fuck this guy, dude.
I think it's awesome. Congratulations with everything you got going. Your students all the best as well.
And your development seems to be going great too, and that's very.
And Jones rolls his eyes. He rolls. This guy's still bitter about me, I guess. The no accountability that Jones takes for anything. I'm not going to say why, but there's just a low level of accountability here with Jones. This guy's still hating on me, huh? You knocked him out on roids. And DC there when he said, and your development seems to be going good as well. The passive aggressiveness of a teacher on parents' evening. You know what I mean? That's what that is. And your development seems to be going well as well. You know what I mean? That's not a compliment from DC. That's you were once a shit piece of shit. But now you're okay, I guess. Even though you still did everything that you did. And Jones rolls his eyes. Ugh. Exhausting, right, guys? This guy's still not over that I beat his ass in front of his whole family on roids. It's crazy to me.
Encouraging, though. A lot of people look up to you, so make sure you continue to do that.
Yep, I'm on it.
You guys have anything to say?
Thank you. It's good to talk to you with this energy instead of the way we usually are. This is refreshing. So thank you for your time, Daniel. And John, you as well.
Thank you, brother. We'll see.
No response there from DC at the end. It's a strange one, dude. And then you see some of the comments here as well. Jesus, the top one's crazy. 3,000 likes. DC is and will forever be salty towards Jones. If you're smart, you know this is Jones sunning the fuck out of DC. Love to see it. DC straight capping. But they're like acting like he's still salty about his loss and doesn't like Jones. And you're like, you know, Jones is playing mind games with him. Like the comments. DC still hates John, by the way. Still hates Jon Jones, by the way. 2,000 likes. They need to have a Shaq Kobe sit down. I made you cry in front of the world. You know? DC on his phone like the kid who doesn't want to say hi to the family and starts playing his Switch. Like, dude, Jon Jones ruined his career because he was on roids. Lance Armstrong popped and they took him out of the GOAT conversation, right? I was having this conversation earlier on stream. Lance Armstrong popped. He's now not brought up. His whole career's a sham. By the same people that popped Jones, by the way. The exact same people. Nowitzki and USADA. They're the people that popped Lance Armstrong, I'm pretty sure. TJ Dillashaw popped. If you bring up TJ in a GOAT debate at bantamweight, you'd be laughed out of the room. What are you talking about, dude? He popped. Well, then Jones ain't the GOAT. Jones is... It's crazy how people aren't... There's not a thousands of likes comment that just says, well, no shit, DC didn't look interested in that convo. Jones beat him on PEDs. There's not a comment like this. Oh, there you go. There's one with 220 likes. You know? DC's still mad that Jones is taking steroids to beat him and he has the right to be mad. 200 likes. Everything else, thousands and thousands. Dude, I hate the world we're in because most people are retarded. And it really is annoying to me. There's no logic prevailing anywhere in this online world. I'm telling you, children shouldn't be able to speak online. I really think that. I really think that. Until you're 18, you can't leave a comment on some shit. Like, because I hate that drives narrative. Like, there'll be some kid out there like, oh, DC straight capping on his Switch, like he doesn't want to talk to the family, lol. DC will forever be salty, lol. Like, you shouldn't be able to speak online if you're not over 18, honestly. I don't think that should be a thing. Either way, that's crazy as well, and DC's got to sit there and take it. And then even this at the end, this is just a little bit at the end I wanted to include, but they do this a lot on the weigh-in shows, and it really annoys me. But they do this a ton. And this is the only example I can find. But you know, if you've watched the weigh-in shows before, you know they do a lot of Jon Jones jokes at DC. And he has to sit there and go, yeah, he did destroy my whole life. But look at this one here. I'll just play this just to get it done. Watch it.
As you got a single leg on me.
DC, look at your font.
Only allowed to work.
Only allowed to work because Jon
You see, that's
We're starting early.
See, they're starting early.
We're starting.
Only allowed to work because Jon Jones approved it. Now, this was after this phone call, and then Jones tweeted out something like, I'll be happy to have DC work at my event, and I'll have no love lost about DC working at my event, and all of this type of thing. I was just like, they're making jokes about it. Only allowed to work because Jon Jones approved it. And meanwhile, there's a director of the weigh-in show back there going, this would be funny. Jones ruined his entire fucking life in front of his family. Let me put this in a little graphic and see if DC laughs at it. And it's just like, I know, like, listen, DC has his eating disorder that he's picked up recently, and that's always been a thing in his career. But it's gotten really bad recently where I am worried, and I might make a standalone video about the DC situation, because if I don't make that standalone video, I don't know if DC's going to be able to stand alone for much longer. But I might do a standalone video on the DC thing, because it is worrying how massive he's gotten and the eating disorder that he has picked up. And as someone who, you know, I've had my fair share of gorges, you know what I'm saying? Binging on food. I know his pain. You know what I mean? It's our culture, and I understand it more than you skinnies, so don't want anyone making any jokes like, how can you say that? Because that's our word, as we've been over before. But it's crazy to me, man. It's up there getting mocked on the weigh-in show, you know?
Starting early.
They starting early, and I mean, this is crazy, man. Disrespectful, man.
Disrespectful, man. You kind of bringing up that I got, you know, destroyed legacy-wise by a guy on roids when I was natty. Kind of disrespectful, man. And DC's got to sit up there like some fucking joke. The phone call as well, and then there's this, and it's like, dude, he's breaking down.
To land that Jon's a taller guy.
Yeah. And he's going between the screens and breaking down different fights, and we're like, now we get to this no contest. And then they both just sit there like nothing happened. Because guess what, yeah? Without the DC head kick KO, what's a really cool-looking Jon Jones win since the Lyoto Machida fight? I know he choked out Rampage, and he finished Shogun, brutal finish. Back then, they needed like a relevant Reebok era great finish from Jones. And without the DC head kick, it's the choke against Garn and then the like pitiful ground and pound against Gus where he finished him and Gus just kind of covered up. There's no cool knock a guy out on the feet type of KO from Jones, which is fucking crazy, by the way. Because he's been on PEDs his whole career. And he don't really have that, where he's just knocked a guy out. That is kind of crazy to think. Pereira does it nearingly every other fight, basically, these days. Like, every fight, really. Yuri first fight, Yuri second fight, Jamal Hill. You know, took him a bit longer, but Khalil Roundtree. Like, he has a brutal, oh my God, what brutal finish. And Jones did have those against, you know, the 5'10", 5'11", absolute bums. No bums. They're not bums. But, you know, I want to say, you know, I saw someone putting up on Twitter, and I just made a tweet about this. People are saying things like, oh, Jones, dude, who can compare to this resume? Like, the guys he beat at the time that he beat them. And it's like Rampage Jackson. Who was another one? Lyoto Machida. And there was another name on that resume as well. Shogun Hua. And they were showing his topology and, like, all of these wins that he's got. And I'm thinking, like, hold on. 3 or 4 years. 3 years for the Rampage fight. And 4 years for the Shogun fight. Maybe not 4, maybe 2. But I think it was 4. Forrest Griffin beat both of them. He finished Shogun in the same round that Jones did. Yet Jones, because of a few JRE clips, fans go back and see a Joe Rogan clip of him choking out or finishing Shogun with a body shot and a knee. And then they see him choking out Rampage and they go, man, he destroyed these unbeatable monsters. And I'm like, Rampage lost to Shogun, Rampage lost to Forrest Griffin 3 years before the Jones fight. 3 years. He was losing to Forrest Griffin. I never thought Forrest was high level. Never thought he was high level. He did well in his career. But when you watch back Forrest's career, you're like, what the fuck is this? You know what I mean? You really are, skill-wise. And that was sort of exposed in the Anderson Silva fight, right? How much of a skill gap there really was between Forrest and capable MMA fighters, let's say. You could also say that about Anderson Silva and most of his opponents back then, because that's just how the sport was. But the Shogun fight, dude, Forrest beat him years before. Choked him out in round 3. Finished him. Then you look at the Lyoto Machida fight, and everyone's like, dude, Lyoto at that point was a beast. He was on a 2-fight losing streak, snapped it to old man Randy Couture with the crane kick, and then got a title shot. Fair enough, the 2-fight losing streak was to Rampage and Shogun. Understandable, and before that, he was a champ. If I'm not mistaken, I think that's correct. He was a champ. He lost 2-1 a fight against old man Randy Couture. Crane kicked him. And then people were like, dude, he beat a surging Lyoto Machida in his prime. Like, if that happened with anyone else, there wouldn't be as much value behind that win. Dude, Volk lost to Makhachev. And then Topuria beat him. And people were like, dude, that don't count, dude, after Makhachev derailed his career. I know it was short turnaround, but most of those fights back in the day weren't. They weren't thinking, I need 8 months off after this KO. They weren't thinking like that back in the day. But you see that a lot, right? If Edwards lost another fight now as a non-champion, so that's like Lyoto Machida losing to Rampage, Shogun then Rampage. So Shogun is like, wow, how weird, huh? Shogun is like Leon Edwards' Bilal Muhammad. And then Rampage at that time, I guess, would have been Leon Edwards like not a Sean Brady, but let's say he lost like a JDM. You know? Leon Edwards loses to Bilal, then JDM knocks him out, and then Brady beats him. People are going to be like, yeah, but he didn't beat Prime Leon, no. That would be the narrative. But no, it was Lyoto in his prime, guys. That was when Lyoto was at his best. After he snapped that losing streak to fight John. Vitor Belfort, he was like 21-9 at the time of fighting Jones. But dude, he was at his fucking... Didn't you just know he was on roids? Who else was in that fight? Anyone know? He beat Sourced Vitor. Oh, and Jones was natty, dude? Jones was natty, ignoring a broken arm and continuing to fight with it. I mean, JDM may not be natty. I've just revealed. But dude, that's not the only reason. Lifting Vitor out of the armbar, peeling his arm out of it and slamming Vitor down and then beating the hell out of him. Dude, he beat Sourced Vitor. He beat Sourced 21-9 Vitor, dude. You weren't understanding this? You're just natty in that fight. It's crazy to me, dude. Sorry. There's the main thing about DC, but I ended up going off on Jones at the end. But stop making DC do this, man. I know it gets hype. I know it gets more interactions because DC's fought him before and everyone knows there's this beef. But at least, if you're going to have him do this, MMA fans as a whole, we need to make MMA fans better. I know people say I make them worse, and I do. I do. You know, the last UFC uploaded a Chandler video. I do make them worse in some ways. I get it. But we also make them better in the right ways. And the MMA fan base take on this, whenever you see DC up there, is like, man, shout out to DC. Jones ruined his entire career by beating him while he was on PEDs, despite being a much younger dude and in his prime, while DC was like 38 years old in the rematch. Respect to DC, man. You gotta respect it. Not respect to DC for being professional since Jones beat him twice. It's weird to me how there's not thousands of likes on a comment saying that. Is what it is. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Toodle pip. I'll see you later. Ended up yapping a bit about Jones at the end, but is what it is. See you later, guys. Goodbye.